The atmosphere inside ABC's Good Morning America studio was usually buzzing with light-hearted chatter, coffee cups clinking, and producers whispering instructions into their headsets. But on that particular morning, a storm was brewing behind the cameras. George Stephanopoulos, the seasoned political commentator turned morning show host, was preparing for an unusual guest. The lineup had been promoted for weeks. Princess Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge, live in New York. Producers believed it would be a charming segment, an elegant royal speaking about her charitable work, family, and perhaps sharing a few cultural exchanges between Britain and America. But what none of them predicted was how quickly the polished conversation would spiral into confrontation. George adjusted his tie as he flipped through his notes. He had interviewed presidents, senators, and world leaders, but the idea of going toe-to-toe with a member of the British royal family felt delicate. Still, George had a journalistic reputation. He wouldn't allow pomp and ceremony to overshadow truth. The cameras rolled. "Good morning, America," George announced with his usual poise. "Today we have a very special guest, Her Royal Highness, Princess Catherine of Wales. She's here to talk about her initiatives in early childhood development and her recent visit to the United States." Catherine stepped onto the stage with her signature grace. Dressed in a pale blue suit, her composure radiated confidence. The audience clapped warmly, charmed by her presence. She smiled, waved, and sat across from George at the glass table. At first, the conversation was light. Catherine spoke about her children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, and how motherhood had inspired her projects. The audience leaned in, admiring her thoughtful remarks about education, mental health, and community resilience. But George, known for pushing boundaries, shifted gears. "Princess," he began, his tone sharpening, "many people admire your charitable work. But at the same time, there are questions about the royal family's relevance in today's world. Some say the monarchy is outdated, a relic of colonialism. How do you respond to those criticisms?" The studio grew quiet. The polite applause faded into tense silence. Catherine straightened her back, her eyes narrowing just slightly. "I believe tradition has value," she said carefully. "The royal family serves as a symbol of continuity and unity. Our role is not political but cultural, and through it, we've been able to shine a light on important causes." George didn't back down. Yet, critics argue that the monarchy costs taxpayers millions while ordinary families struggle. Isn't it unfair that unelected royals enjoy privilege while others live paycheck to paycheck? The audience murmured. Catherine's composed smile wavered for the first time. "With respect, Mr. Stephanopoulos," she said firmly, "I find it disappointing when important conversations about children's welfare are overshadowed by political point scoring. My purpose here is not to debate the institution of the monarchy but to focus on real solutions for families." George raised an eyebrow. "But isn't the monarchy itself part of the problem? You can't separate the two. Doesn't your very position undermine the equality you're advocating for?" That was the spark. Catherine leaned forward, her voice sharp now. "I came here to discuss programs helping vulnerable children, not to be lectured on politics by someone who has never lived under the weight of tradition or duty." The studio gasped. Some audience members clapped nervously, others glanced at each other in shock. George, unshaken, fired back. "With all due respect, Princess, I've lived under the weight of accountability to the public. That's something the monarchy has yet to fully embrace." The clash escalated. What had been planned as a 12-minute feel-good interview stretched past 20 minutes, every second more tense than the last. Catherine's face flushed with restrained frustration. George's tone grew more relentless. Finally, after a heated exchange over whether royals should have political influence, Catherine snapped. "This conversation is no longer productive," she declared, pushing back her chair. "If this is the level of discourse you wish to pursue, then I have no reason to remain here." Gasps filled the studio. George leaned back, stunned but resolute. "Then perhaps you should leave, Princess," he said coolly. "We don't tailor questions to comfort here, we ask them to uncover truth." The audience fell into stunned silence. Catherine stood, her heels clicking against the stage floor. For a moment, her regal poise faltered, replaced by visible anger. She turned to the audience, gave a curt nod, and walked off stage as cameras captured every second. The producers scrambled, the control room panicked, and social media exploded within minutes. George Stephanopoulos kicks Princess Catherine out after fiery clash. Royal walkout live on American TV. Did George go too far, or was Catherine unprepared for tough questions? The fallout had only just begun. The clash between George Stephanopoulos and Princess Catherine dominated headlines across both sides of the Atlantic. By mid-afternoon, clips of the walkout trended on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The hashtag Princess Walkout reached millions within hours. In London, royal aides scrambled to control the narrative. Statements were drafted and redrafted, each attempting to cast Catherine's departure not as a dramatic exit but as a principled stand. The Princess of Wales was disappointed that her charitable initiatives were overshadowed by aggressive and politicized questions, Kensington Palace said in an official release. She remains committed to supporting children and families around the world. Meanwhile, George defended himself on air the next morning. Sitting at the same glass table, he addressed the controversy head-on. Yesterday's interview took an unexpected turn, he admitted. But as journalists, our responsibility is not to flatter our guests but to hold them accountable. Princess or politician, no one should be above honest questions. The American public was divided. Some praised George for refusing to bow to royalty. Others accused him of disrespecting a guest who had come to promote a charitable cause. George was rude, Catherine deserved better, one viewer tweeted. Finally someone challenged the monarchy. Props to Stephanopoulos, another wrote. Across talk shows, podcasts, and news panels, debates raged. Was Catherine's walkout an overreaction? Was George's questioning unnecessarily harsh? Or was this simply the clash of two worlds, royal tradition versus journalistic accountability? Catherine herself, however, remained silent. Behind palace walls, she faced her own reckoning. For years she had mastered the art of composure, charming the public with dignity and restraint. But this time, she had lost her temper, on live American television. Privately, she confided in Prince William. They baited me, William, she said, pacing their Kensington apartment. I came to speak about children, and he turned it into a political circus. William placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You stood your ground. That matters. People will see that you weren't afraid to speak. But Catherine wasn't convinced. For a royal, perception was everything. And now, the image of her walking out mid-interview threatened to overshadow years of careful public service. Meanwhile, George faced his own pressure. ABC executives feared losing access to future royal interviews. Sponsors worried about alienating British viewers. Yet George remained unapologetic. I did my job, he told colleagues. If a guest can't handle tough questions, that's on them, not me. The controversy snowballed when late-night comedians picked it up. One quipped, George Stephanopoulos just became the first American to tell a royal, get out, and live to tell the tale. Even the British tabloids, usually fierce defenders of Catherine, were split. The Daily Mail condemned George's arrogance, while The Guardian praised him for puncturing the bubble of royal privilege. Weeks later, when Catherine returned to the U.S. for a private engagement, reporters swarmed her. Princess, do you regret walking out? One shouted. Catherine paused, then smiled faintly. I don't regret standing up for myself, she replied. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. The remark reignited the debate. Was Catherine positioning herself as a modern, assertive royal, or had she simply let her temper get the best of her? For George, the interview became both a career highlight and a lightning rod. Bookers noticed an uptick in ratings whenever he interviewed controversial figures. His reputation as a tough interviewer grew, but so did whispers that he had crossed a line with Catherine. In the end, neither side emerged unscathed. Catherine's royal image was tested like never before. George's credibility as a journalist was questioned by some, praised by others. But one thing was undeniable, the fiery clash had changed the dynamic between royals and American media forever. Months later, when Catherine spoke at a children's summit in Washington, she began her speech with a subtle nod to the past. I believe in the power of respectful dialogue, she said, her voice steady. Even when conversations are uncomfortable, they can lead to growth. What matters most is that we keep listening, especially to the youngest among us. The audience applauded warmly. Catherine had, once again, reclaimed her composure. Yet somewhere in a newsroom in New York, George Stephanopoulos smirked as he replayed the infamous clip. Sometimes, He thought, the hardest truths are revealed not in answers, but in exits. And so the story of a morning show clash between a seasoned journalist and a modern princess became a defining moment in transatlantic television history, a fiery reminder that even in a world of crowns and cameras, no stage is free from confrontation.